you feel betrayed, or you feel upset, bullied, the last thing you want to do is forgive that person, right? The last thing. I couldn't live with myself if something happened to my mum, and the last conversation I ever had was one of anger and unforgiveness. Wow. Another difficult question. I wish more people will be brave enough to forgive and move on. Life is too short.
Be careful. Today's episode might make you feel a bit uncomfortable. How often do we postpone taking tough decisions? And how often do we avoid having difficult conversations? Join me as I talk with Shulin Lee, who is a business owner and lawyer turned recruiter. She will share her inspiring journey and how she managed to take difficult decisions and navigate really tough conversations. Stay tuned. I think a good place to start is to understand the backstory. How did you switch from being a lawyer to a legal recruiter?
It was not a snap decision. It was a decision that actually took place over a few years. And what was very difficult for me was when I was growing up, I always wanted to be a lawyer. So here's the thing, 2 months into my job as a lawyer, I realized, this is not for me. But obviously, 2 months is too soon. But what I did was, as an impulsive young, 20-something year old, I sent out my CV to everyone. And I also had every rejection imaginable. Every door was shut in my face. And everyone I met, everyone who was willing to interview me, actually said, Shulin, stay on in law. Don't quit so soon. So it was a process of 3.5 years of soul searching, applying for jobs. And then when the opportunity came to leave law to do something else, which was legal recruitment, I grabbed it with both hands. So I think a lot of people saw this major decision, but what people didn't see was that it was behind the scenes already in the making for a number of years.
And how did you realize that that was not for you?
Okay, so my motto in life is to always excel, okay? Or always giving my best. And the thing is, sorry to my ex-bosses, but I just didn't feel like giving my best when I was a lawyer. And that was a warning sign. Because if I couldn't be bothered to be the best, or refine my craft, or constantly seeking to improve myself, which is, I know that's me, right? Then, and I can't do that in the legal profession, then it means that I was in the wrong role. And now looking back, it's clear why there was so much discomfort. So there was this feeling of unease when I was a lawyer. I felt like a fraud, actually. I felt I didn't belong. So imposter syndrome was very strong. But that wasn't just imposter syndrome. It was actually a signal from within me that this is not my calling. This is not where I can be my best. And if I had stayed on, I'm convinced that I actually have been a very mediocre lawyer. I would have been very unhappy and definitely not able to live with who I then become, you know? Because if you live with something that is not really you, that's the most tragic of it all.
Yeah, I think what I love is that you listen to that discomfort and you are brave to take a decision, and that's huge.
Okay, thank you. Yes, looking back, it was very brave because I took a massive pay cut. I was on $8,500 a month as a senior associate in a big law firm, and when I jumped, I basically had no base salary. Yeah, so that was difficult.
So today, what drives you?
Wow, okay. so many things. I have 2 sons, so that drives me, my family, my very supportive husband. But beyond that, what drives me is making an impact beyond myself and my immediate team. So I always tell my team, we cannot look at this as just a job. If we look at this as just like clock in, clock out for a paycheck, frankly, there are other jobs that are easier to do that, okay? Because our job as recruiters, we journey with people. We have to plot their careers. We work with our clients to find the best talent. It's not easy because we're dealing with people. And so what drives me is really to act in the best interests of the people we work with, such that it's not transactional. It's never transactional with us. It's a lot more work, actually, because if it's just transactional, it's like, here you go, that's it. I don't have to think so much. Yeah. But because we go above and beyond, which is aligned with our values, then that's what really drives me. When we do, I always think people who go above and beyond their job scope are people I want to hire in my team.
So I think it would be nice to understand, and what breaks your heart?
Ooh, that's a deep question. What breaks my heart? So what breaks my heart is speaking and hearing from people who feel stuck and they say they have no choice. Okay? That is very heartbreaking. Feeling stuck is one thing. Okay, you can do something about it. But then turning around and saying, oh, I have no choice, I'm stuck where I am, and this is my lot in life, this is my destiny. That breaks my heart. When someone feels they are helpless, they have no choice, and they play, quite frankly, the victim card, the victim mentality.
Yeah. So for you, what's been the most difficult decision that you took in your life?
Wow, so many, right? So we talked about leaving law, that was one. The most difficult decision in my life in recent times has been to part ways with my former co-founder. That was very difficult. It was difficult on so many levels because we were together for 12 years. There's a shared history. It's not just a business partnership, it's also a friend, almost like, I treated her almost like a family member. So it was very difficult to have to acknowledge and recognize that our paths have diverged. And it's okay, there's no good, there's no bad. It's just, the reality is our end game, our end vision were no longer the same. So it was a natural evolution, but it was difficult. Very difficult.
And what was that moment that you felt like, okay, I really need to take this decision?
Wow. Another difficult question. So there were a lot of things that happened along the years, which quite frankly, I think I disregarded or just chose to close an eye to. COVID-19, the pandemic, working from home, I think it was 2021 when I realized how diverged our vision have gone, And the thing about life is that I prefer anyway, to go through it like cruise, and just turn a blind eye and just relax, because I rather not have to rock the boat, So the trigger was when I realized in 2021, hang on, these are going to be the best years of my life. These are the best years of my life. I don't want to sweep everything under the carpet. I wanted to have an uncomfortable conversation, because in that uncomfortable conversation, then I confirmed that our views were really disparate. So that was the trigger point.
And for people who might be in the same situation, they might need to take a difficult decision, but they are not able to do it. What's your advice?
Okay, so if there is someone who is facing a difficult decision, first of all, congratulations and acknowledge that you are about to go into the next chapter, right? Because you're already feeling the discomfort, right? That's why you are finding it difficult. If it's an easy decision, then and it's no-brainer, then it wouldn't be. I think it won't be a quantum leap. So first of all, acknowledge yourself for having that courage to face a difficult decision. I think there are 3 steps before you embark on making that difficult decision, particularly if it's got to do with career. Okay, first of all, it's self-discovery. Ask yourself what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and it's very easy. You can just ask yourself, what do I love doing? What do I hate doing, right?
Yeah.
What do you absolutely detest doing? And you can also rely on diagnostic tools like the Gallup Strengths Test, which I really recommend. I also do the DISC test. I'm very high on D and I. So you can rely on all these. Obviously, you can speak to a coach to discover yourself. And once you have uncovered, okay, this is who I am, this is sort of like the roadmap. And I wish I did that earlier on, quite frankly. But yes, so the first step is self-discovery. Then the second step is self-awareness. So now that you know who you are, let's confirm it. Let's speak to the people around you, interview them, right? You may think you are a certain person, but ask someone how they perceive you. So with my team, right, I might be telling my team, hey, you should do this, do that. Oh, I think in my mind, I'm nurturing, I'm a great leader. But maybe if you interview them, they're like, Shulin's overbearing, imposing, and just egotistical. So these are things that I'm not really. But anyway, I think it's so important to build that, to do the exercise of discovering who you are first, step 1, and then see if there is there, because you might think you're here, but you're here, right? Then self-awareness. Then before you make that decision, it's also about self-mastery. So self-mastery is a very big word. It really means having that focus, that intention, and the discipline. So I learned this actually when I did the Tony Robbins course. And I had to be so disciplined and intentional about reflecting, like reviewing, okay, what has been going on for the last week, the last month, the last quarter. Because if you're about to make a difficult decision, you have to know where you are right now. Like if you don't know where you are and you have to make that decision, it's not a proper decision. And if you skip steps 1 and 2, discovering yourself and self-awareness, you can't actually master yourself.
Yeah.
So if you are facing a difficult decision, I would say for sure, everyone says speak to someone, but speak to who?
Yeah.
Don't speak to people in your comfort zone because they are usually just going to echo your views. Maybe also start by listening to your podcast. It's a great, excellent resource of information.
Yeah, I really love that. So it's to go on a self-exploration journey, but then just to have some feedback on that to see, is this really who I am and what I want? And then comes the self-mastery, right? Wow, yes. It's very good. But sometimes life becomes so overwhelming, there's so much, and sometimes people can feel lost. What is the smallest thing that someone can do in order just to start? Yes.
And I feel that a lot of the times, being overwhelmed. Yeah. So what I actually watched this YouTube video called Just Start by David Allen, right? And every time I feel stuck, I watch that video again to remind myself. And what he recommended, so I cannot take credit for this, is to get out of that space. So maybe walk out, go into nature, go somewhere else, take out a notepad, and just do a brain dump. So just write everything down. I like to list down like 10 things I need to do, and then just pick out the top 3 things and do the first thing. Because you are feeling overwhelmed, right? And that's actually a sign where you cannot be creative, you cannot focus. Yeah. So if you just do that exercise, things just flow.
Yeah, I really, really love that. Yeah. So as part of the difficult decisions comes sometimes having difficult conversations.
Yes.
So maybe you can share also a story that you had where you had a difficult conversation, and how did you navigate it?
Yeah. Oh, I can think of so many examples of difficult conversations. What comes to mind more recently is a personal story, was when I had to speak with my mother, who I just had a falling out with, right? So I was very unhappy, I was very disappointed, very sad, and I felt very, I would even say I was very heartbroken, you know, because I felt like I will not go into details about what was the falling out. I might have another falling out after this if I go into details. But the thing is that difficult conversation was so necessary. And I'm so proud of myself because I only took 2 days to get over that discomfort. And I drove myself to my mom's office and we had a really awkward conversation, very, very uncomfortable conversation. But within 30, 45 minutes, there was healing, there was forgiveness, and our relationship went to another level. Like, we're so much closer now.
That is so, so beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that personal story. What was the moment that you had that insight? There was that liminal moment that you felt, I really need to have this conversation? Because that's the hardest part.
It was very hard. And I know some people can go for months and years, you know, not speaking with their own parents or their loved ones. The reason why I only took 2 days was because I couldn't live with myself if something happened to my mum, and the last conversation I ever had was one of anger and unforgiveness. I cannot live with myself. My father-in-law did have a major stroke, and overnight he can't speak. You know, he's not able to speak now. He's still alive, but he's not able to walk. He's not able to talk. And because of that very major life circumstance, I look at life with a very different lens now. So yes, my mom and I did have an unhappy situation. And then I asked myself, was it worth staying angry with her? Is my love for her not worth more? And what does it hurt to put aside my ego and my pride, right? And go there. It was very uncomfortable, I can tell you. I remember when we were in the cafe, it was like we were clumsily pulling out the chairs, and then we sat down. And the moment we sat down, we were like just in tears. Yeah. It was a beautiful moment, and I will never forget it. I don't think she'll ever forget it. And I wish more people will be brave enough to forgive and move on. Life is too short.
Thank you for sharing that. That is so beautiful. I think there's so many people who feel stuck in their ego and they don't take the decision to have conversations with their parents, you know, and they are stuck, you know. I was there also, and I mean, I'm very inspired by what you said, because exactly the same thought that you had, I could not bear to leave this world with something unresolved with my family. And I also did the same with my mom. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. That's why you and I really connected on this topic.
Yeah, wow, that's beautiful. Okay, so now we have an example of a personal story. I think now let's maybe go into a professional story. Do you have a story where you also had to have a difficult conversation?
I did actually. Earlier this year, I have a team member who is excellent in her work. She's amazing. And the funny thing is, when I had to give her an honest appraisal, I found myself walking on eggshells. I was so worried about hurting her feelings because we both wanted her to be here. But the thing is, she's not there yet, right? And in order for me to have that difficult conversation, to tell her, hey, these are some of the things that you need to do, I don't know why, I froze, you know. I found it so challenging to be upfront. And I'm usually not like that. I'm very direct, I'm very transparent. Then I thought back and I asked myself, why am I so afraid? So it turns out I was so scared that if I hurt her feelings, she might turn around and resign. So this was all in my head though, because she then came back to me and said, Shulin, stop beating around the bush. You know, like just spit it out. So I'm glad that I created this pretty honest, transparent culture. So when I was being awkward and beating around the bush, my team member called me out. I also called myself out because it was so uncomfortable that it was bordering on inauthentic. So yeah, but there you go. Now I have the cure actually. So after that very awkward conversation, which I never ever want to feel that way again, I came up with a new system. And I must credit Rachel Lim of Love Bonito, who told me about Adam Grant. So Adam Grant recommends doing exit interviews every month. Okay, this is not to encourage people to resign, but basically you don't want to get to a stage where you're having your exit interview with someone who already decided to leave, they're mentally checked out, and they are angry. They are not going to listen to anything. So if every month we have a very simple conversation, how is the company failing you? What have I done to fail you? And what can I do better? So now that I've institutionalized it, it's a lot easier. We do that every month or after every deal closing. We ask these questions and people don't take it so personally. They realize this is part and parcel of the company culture.
But how did they feel at the beginning when you started doing that with your team?
So when they started doing that, they were all being very politically correct. They didn't want to hurt my feelings, They said, no, Shulin, everything is good, I love it. So I'm like, no, let's get to the real meat. And it takes time to build that trust. It takes time for them to know that, okay, I'm not going to get crucified for being honest. And it also takes time for them to build this habit of perpetual feedback.
So in these two situations, with your mom and also with your team member, what have you learned?
I learned that it's best not to put off difficult conversations. When we suppress our true feelings, when we sweep things under the carpet, and we put on a brave front and say, all good, I'm fine, are you really? Things get much worse, and things can escalate in ways you cannot even expect. And so the risk of not having that uncomfortable conversation is actually much bigger than having it. So having it is actually less risky. Yeah, but people fail to realize that we play it up in our minds, we imagine it's going to be so difficult, but once you have it, you feel so free, you feel liberated.
And I love what you said, because also you were playing in your mind, but that was just in your mind. And it's exactly what happens with all of us in these situations. We play it in our minds, and then it stopped us from having these difficult conversations. But what I love about you is that you feel the discomfort, but that means for you, this is where I have to go.
Yes.
And you move forward.
Yes.
So good, Shulin.
You said it right. Because the moment I feel this discomfort or disconnect with myself, I just can't, I think maybe some people are very good or they've gotten very used to suppressing it. But I can't, like I feel like I cannot get on with my day, I cannot get on with my life. And this is where some people, where their work performance suffers, is because their personal lives at home are not being dealt with. Like if I fight with my girlfriend, my husband, my boyfriend, back then boyfriend, I remember feeling like I couldn't focus at all.
So if people are in the same situation that you were, for example, with your mom, what are some strategies that you find that can help people to first to take the decision and then to have the conversation?
Okay, great question. Because every time you are feeling angry, you feel betrayed, or you feel upset, bullied, the last thing you want to do is forgive that person, right? The last thing. So remembering that forgiving that person is actually really more for yourself than for that person. That's key, number one. And number two, that strategy that I go to, my go-to strategy, is to list down 10 things I'm grateful for that person. Immediately, your mindset starts to shift. In fact, funny story, every time my husband is upset with me or in a fight, right, I'm like, tell me 3 things you're grateful for. And then we have a laugh, right? Because like in that moment, it's so angry, like, what? I'm not grateful for you. But there's always something to be grateful for. Always. And then you can start thinking about trying to make amends with that person. Yeah.
That is so good. Well, so much that I love that you every opportunity that you had to have a difficult conversation or when you felt a discomfort, you were able to transform that in growth, right? And that's very, very, very inspiring.
Okay. Yeah, now that you say it that way, yes, okay. I didn't look at it that way, but thanks for framing it that way. Yeah.
And when you look back to all this that we've been talking, what are you most proud of?
I'm proud of so many things in my life, and I've been so blessed. I'm the proudest of the fact that I built this business, Shulin Lee, my legal recruitment firm, which I founded 7 years ago when I had a newborn baby. I had a 2-month-old baby. So my son is only 2 months older than my company. So I'm proudest of that because that was actually a very dark period. It was a dark period because I was trying to navigate motherhood. I was trying to navigate starting a new company. I didn't even know how to set up like a corporate bank account. I remember going there and like, where do I go? You know, and I am proudest of the fact that I've come this far and I never thought I could.
You should.
Yeah.
That is so good. And when you look at the world today,
yes.
So what is your ideal world and how can we get there?
So I'm going to sound like a Miss Universe contestant.
Let's go.
So my ideal world is where there is peace. There is world peace. And how we can get there is if we can visualize Mother Earth as a huge jigsaw puzzle. So we are all part of this jigsaw, and if only we take the time and we give ourselves grace to figure out where we exactly fit in based on our strengths, based on our purpose and values. And when we find where we belong, our home, everything will fit seamlessly and everyone is happy for one another. There's no jealousy, there's no strife, because you feel you belong. You don't feel like an imposter, you don't feel like a fraud. And you know, your previous podcast guest said it brilliantly, Bhavna, right? She said, life is a single player game. Like, quit comparing. And you know, I remember when she said that, I was listening to your podcast, I wrote it down, and I messaged that to many of my friends because guess what? When you realize that, it's so freeing, it's so liberating. You are free to do what you are made to do. You know, your God-given talents, make use of it, and stop looking over your shoulder and see who your competitor is or what they are doing, because that's actually, I think that's a really, not an empowering place to be in. Yeah.
I think if one day, if you will be in the final of a Miss Universe, you will win for sure with that answer.
One can dream. Yeah.
That is so good. Yeah, so we're coming to the end.
Yes.
And I have one last question for you.
Yes.
So people ask you a lot of questions, but what is one question that no one has asked you before and you would love to answer?
Wow. I guess, what am I most scared of? Because a lot of people see this person as being fearless, I'm very courageous, I started a podcast, I started my business, but they forget that I still have fears. So they don't ask me, what are you still very scared of?
And what are you scared of?
Okay, so I am still scared of so many things, quite frankly. I was scared when you first invited me on this podcast. I'll be honest, because I'm not used to being in the hot seat. I'm used to being the one asking the questions. But to answer your question on a more serious note, I'm most scared of being forgettable and mediocre. And that's why I left law in the first place. And that's why I always seek to see whether there are ways I can improve things, whether there are ways, different ways of doing things, and I don't want to be eliminated. So that's the main thing. I always want to be the best, and if I'm not being exceptional, at least I give an exceptional effort in what I do.
What a wonderful way to end our conversation.
Thank you for having me. This was really, really good. I enjoyed myself.
Yeah, I enjoyed a lot. I think I was so inspired by your story, but also by your determination and how you are so focused on growing yourself, but also growing others. And how you went through life and taking difficult decisions and pushing through, and at the end to become a better person.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing the stories and for inspiring other people to also to take difficult decisions and to have difficult conversations, because there's light on the other end of the tunnel.
Absolutely, absolutely. It only takes that one step. Thank you so much, Rodrigo. Really appreciate you having me here.